This is a diorama actually created by the WPA during the 1930s, showing Europeans trading with Native Americans, trading clothes and metal tools, presumably for land. And if you'd allow me to digress for just for a minute, let me briefly tell you a story about this. So we have from Native Americans a story of their first encounter with Europeans. It's been republished under the title Between Hope and Fear, in a book by Howard Green on New Jersey history, a reader. And basically it says that it tells the story of a Dutch voyage of exploration, or the arrival of Dutch explorers from a Lenape perspective. So the Lenape say, we were on the beach and we saw a new island appear in the ocean. The island had clouds above it. It had trees on it. There were people dressed in strange clothes on this island, and their language made no sense. It was like dogs barking. And then the island stopped, and we all gathered round. And a canoe left the island, came on shore, and there were strangely dressed men. Here are strangely dressed men over to the right. And they came ashore, and they gave us a gourd to drink from. So that gourd is probably a bottle. And we looked at it and we smelled it, but we didn't initially drink from it, not knowing what it was. But then one of our number took a large draught of the liquid and appeared to pass out. So you can imagine everyone was very upset. He then came back to life, and we were able to communicate with each other. And it turned out that our guests were in fact Dutchmen, and that the Dutchmen wanted to come back, trade with us, and to have a little bit of land. And we were puzzled that they would want land because there was so much land. Why would they want it just for themselves? But they asked to mark out some land as their own for a garden, and we let them. And they came back year after year until eventually we had no land left at all. So this story is told by a group of Lenape or Delaware Indians. And Delaware, I should have said earlier, comes from Lord Delaware, but has been taken up and used by the Lenape since the 1600s. Lord Delaware was an English governor of Virginia who sent this ship north to try and get into the Delaware River and explore the river that today bears his name. So it's sort of a sad story from a Native American perspective of one of these first encounters. In the 1600s, many different nations, the Dutch, the Swedes, this is the capital of New Sweden, down by Philadelphia International Airport, all claim New Jersey, the land of Lenape, as their own. Sometimes there were horrible, what I would call genocidal acts committed by Dutch governors, such as Willem Kieft, seen here in the painting, who dispatched troops into what today would be Jersey City or Pavonia to kill Lenape, who had come peacefully to seek the protection of the Dutch from other Native American adversaries. There were also settler colonists, such as William Penn, seen here as a young man, who engaged in much more peaceful interactions with Native Americans. In fact, Penn might be considered an early anthropologist, as he participated in dances and ceremonies with the Lenape. And this wampum belt from the 1680s at the Philadelphia Museum of Art relates to that time period, and it's believed to show Penn and a native leader holding hands as brothers. This was a time period, though, also of great confusion, and I'm going to digress with one other story. It's a story of Richard Hartshorn, an early settler in what today would be Middletown, New Jersey. Mr. Hartshorn moved south from Rhode Island. He was of English descent. He was a Quaker. He purchased land, quite a lot of land, thousands of acres of land, that today would include Sandy Hook, parts of Middletown, parts of Highlands and Atlantic Highlands, and he built a house for himself. This is a map that was rediscovered a few years back in a private collection. It's now part of the Monmouth County Historical Association's collections. It shows the Navesink River. It shows a number of small houses. William Hartshorn's house, one of his sons. Colson's 105 acres, Colson's house. Clay Pit Creek is over here, Davis's house. And the Beacon. Beacon was beacon erected about where Twin Lights is today. So you can see there are essentially 4 or 5 different tracts of property. Today, there are probably 20,000 people living in this area. Hartshorn moves south and he attempts to put up a house, and a group of Native Americans come to him and say, "You're building a house for us." And he says, no, I am not at all. I bought this land from a realtor, Christopher Almy in Rhode Island. I'm building a house for my family. We're going to live here. And the Lenape say, well, that makes no sense. We don't know what Rhode Island is. We have no idea who Mr. Almy is. And you're building a house on our land, so you must be building a house for us. Hartshorn is interesting, and we know this story because he writes about it. But he then does something extraordinary, and he says, okay, well, what do I have to do to make this right? And the Lenape said, well, you have to buy the land from us, which he does. Now, some years later, and this is a document from 1698 from that same collection of early colonial documents, the Lenape come back and they say to Hartshorn, when you bought this land from us, we didn't understand all the stipulations. We didn't understand that you didn't want us here anymore, that only you could live here, that we couldn't go hunting, that we couldn't take old trees for canoes, that we couldn't go fishing on this land anymore. So if you don't want us here at all, you're going to have to pay us yet again. So this is a document between Richard Hartshorn and a group of Native American leaders. You can see they've made their marks. They don't necessarily know how to read, write, and English, but they have signed this document, and their names, Bow Upon, next to his mark, the Tokus, next to his mark, are both here. And Hartshorn says, fine, I will pay you yet again for these lands. You're right, we did understand that differently. Even more fun, in the same collection of documents, is this small receipt. And it says, Captain Stout paid the Indians a barrel of cider for me, and I gave them a note, so that's a bill, money, for an anchor of rum, because they should not drink it at my house. Richard Hartshorn. So alcohol is part of this transaction. And Hartshorn, perhaps an advocate of temperance, is a Quaker, does not want the alcohol consumed at his house. And then it goes on. When the Indians sold the land, though except hunting, trees for canoes, fishing, fowling, plumbing, this is probably huckleberrying and such. Huckleberries, they would have been using that term for raspberries, that I bought of them, and they have not proven since to be troublesome. Richard Hartshorn. So Hartshorn has this unique relationship, I would say, with the Native Americans, and negotiated.
So Hartshorn has this unique relationship, I would say, with the Native Americans, a negotiated relationship as these two groups of people are trying to better understand each other. What about traces of Native Americans from colonial New Jersey? Sometimes we see things like this gravestone, which is believed to be associated with Native Americans up in Hackensack, New Jersey, the Church on the Green from 1713. Note the canoe-like image, the arrows, and the pipe-like image at the top. There are grave markers for individuals like Akanikin, a Native American leader who died in the 1680s in Burlington City and was buried in a Friends or Quaker meeting house burial ground. There are artifacts that archaeologists like Herb Craft have excavated, such as this incredible kettle used by Native Americans to cook food, but produced in Holland and traded to Native Americans. And then we have modern Native artists like Saltzbach, who produced this incredible image of Teddy-Uska, a Native American leader born in Toms River, New Jersey, who lived much of his life in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, dressed, as you can see, in a mixture of Native American garb and European finery. The 1700s see New Jersey's natives displaced from much of their land. Many of them moved west, though some remain in place. The walking purchase of 1737 steals a large part of east central Pennsylvania from the Lenape that had been a traditional homeland. These two portraits are the only surviving portraits we have of Lenape from this period. The man on the left is Lapawinso, the man on the right is Tishkahan. They're both displayed at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And interestingly enough, they wear traditional pouches, they have traditional tattoos, but they also have European goods, a tobacco pipe, these blue robes that they're wearing, showing that they are people living effectively in two cultures. Missionaries try very hard to convert the Lenape. This is a painting showing missionary to the Lenape in the Ohio country. Some will become Christians, others retain their traditional beliefs and resist the missionaries. One group of natives who do take up Christianity and become Presbyterians moved to a community called Bethel in Monroe Township in 1746, living with David Brainerd, a Presbyterian missionary. And traces of their community have been found by archaeologists. This is a plan view that shows the cellar of a house, and here is a tobacco pipe excavated from that cellar hole. In the 1750s, New Jersey's Native Americans, those who remain in New Jersey and have not moved further west, sign a pair of treaties with the state. One is in Easton, Pennsylvania. Another one happens right here, but let me talk in southern New Jersey. The one in Easton essentially concludes peace between the governors of Pennsylvania and New Jersey and the 8 confederated Indian nations. Note here they're called the Delawares, the Unami, the Minnesinks, the Wappings, in Wappingers Falls, the Mohicans, and they're also working with several nations of Indians living on the Ohio. So the Indians are moving further west. This is the Crosswicks Friends Meeting House in Burlington County. This is where the other treaty is signed. These treaties result in the creation of a reservation, the only one we ever had in the state, in Brotherton, Burlington County. This is today's community of Indian Mills near Medford. It is a planned community established for Native American residents. Cottages are built for the Native Americans. A sawmill, a church, a school, and a grist mill are all constructed. And archaeologists have found some traces of this community. This map at Rutgers is pretty fantastic in that it actually gives us the names of individuals associated with some of these dwellings. But for the majority of natives, especially by the period after the 1760s, many of the Lenape are engaged in what we call a great diaspora, moving north and west to try and put some distance between themselves and the settlers, moving west to Ohio and in Indiana and Wisconsin. So today, we have substantial populations of Lenape descendants in New Jersey, but also in Wisconsin and Oklahoma. A handful of natives stayed behind, such as Indian Ann, and this is her house in Indian Mills. When her kin moved west, she chose not to. But those who moved west retained their traditional language, their traditional culture, and this is a wonderful painting by a native artist, Edward Spybuck, that shows the Lenape ceremony. And I love the fact that the people painted here from the early 20th century are waving to us as if they are saying hi to us from their new home in the West. Some of the groups that remain locally have both strong roots and strong ongoing traditions. The Sand Hill Indians lived in the area in and around Neptune Township, close to where I teach. James Lone Bear Reevey, seen over here to the left in the headdress, headed up New Jersey's American Indian Office for much of the late 20th century and is buried right here in South Plainfield, New Jersey. A wonderful fellow that I had the opportunity to meet. So today, we have federally recognized groups or nations: the Delaware Tribe of Indians in Oklahoma, the Delaware Nation in Oklahoma, and the Stockbridge Munsee in Wisconsin, all descendants of the Lenape. We also have state-recognized tribes still present in New Jersey: the Nanticoke, Lenni Lenape, the Ramapo, and the Powhatan Lenape. And there are other groups, again, such as, the Sandhill Band that I mentioned before. So one of the things to end that I would ask that you take away from this presentation is not only do we have an amazing 12,000 year plus Native American history in the state, and that goes back well before the pyramids were constructed in Egypt or the Colosseum in Rome or the Great Wall in China, but that this is a cultural tradition that continues today. And this is a photograph at a Native American powwow right here in New Jersey. If I recall correctly, this is the powwow that occurred at the opening of a new national park in Paterson. So it's a legacy that continues and a proud part of our state's heritage. For more information, certainly feel free to reach out to me directly through email. Another important group that has been studying New Jersey's Native American past since the 1930s is the Archaeological Society of New Jersey. And all of those tribal nations have their own web presences as well. So thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning.
So we're at the Raritan Powwow, I think 29th annual, Lenape territory. We came up earlier to support the Sand Hill family at a Juneteenth celebration at a burial ground that is both Lenape and African heritage folks, enslaved folks. We don't use that term slaves, enslaved folks. And then, you know, Brother War Turtle told us come on down to the Raritan Powwow after, so of course we shot over here. I'm gonna be honest, I'm disappointed in our Eastern War family. This circle should be full of Eastern War dancers, so we're gonna see what we can do to help out with that next year. But you know, listen, the culture is alive and well. Come off the internet, come around people, stop all of this debate and stupidity. The culture is alive right here, right now. You can look around, see all different types of Indians from all different backgrounds, all different skin tones, all different phenotypes. We don't do the racial stuff around here. It's about the culture, it's about the blood, and it's about the people. So please come on out. In our language, we say, Quay, welcome.